The storm trapped us at the hotel. Then my coworker whispered, "Help me prove the truth." Part 1. The lobby windows groaned under the force of the storm, and every guest in the Sterling Coastal Resort stopped talking at once. A sheet of rain slammed sideways across the glass, turning the ocean beyond it into a black wall. The lights flickered above the marble floor. Somewhere near the north entrance, water pushed under the storm seals in a thin, shining line that spread toward the concierge desk like spilled ink. I kept my hand on the radio at my belt and checked the weather monitor on my tablet. Red over the entire peninsula. Wind speed climbing. County alerts stacking up faster than my staff could read them. Sarah Patel, our junior front desk manager, pressed one hand to her headset and looked at me from behind the counter. She was young enough that some guests underestimated her, but she had the kind of steady eyes a good hotel needed during bad weather. County confirmed the access road is washed out, she said. The suspension bridge at mile 14 is closed until daylight. They're telling every coastal property to shelter in place. A child began crying near the fireplace. I lowered my voice before I answered. Panic travels faster than bad news in a hotel. Move every guest to the second-floor executive lounge. Keep families together. Blankets, bottled water, shelf-stable meals, and hot coffee if the generator holds. Physical head count every 10 minutes. No one near the glass. Sarah nodded once and began giving orders. That was why I was here. As Director of Operations for the Sterling region, the physical building was my responsibility. Power, staff, guests, doors, pumps, generators, emergency communications, and every inch of this resort while the Pacific tried to tear it apart. Claire Bennett stood at the operations desk near the back of the lobby with her laptop open. The blue glow of the screen cut sharp shadows under her eyes. She had spent 3 months closing the acquisition of this property. As Vice President of Acquisitions, she had survived structural audits, vendor fights, zoning meetings, repair budgets, and executive politics sharp enough to draw blood without leaving a mark. But tonight, the storm was only half the threat. Marcus is sending his report to the board at 9 tomorrow morning, she said. I stepped beside the desk, leaving enough space that she could work without feeling crowded. What is he claiming? Her fingers kept moving across the keyboard. That I ignored a foundation warning during due diligence. That I pushed the purchase through to protect my bonus. That this storm proves the building was unsafe when I acquired it. Did you ignore a warning? Her eyes snapped to mine, not offended, measuring. No, she said. The warning was fabricated after closing. Marcus altered the foundation inspection timeline on the local server. The original metadata proves it. Then send the metadata. I'm trying. She turned the laptop toward me. The connection bar pulsed and failed. The external line keeps dropping. The property had not been fully migrated to corporate cloud storage yet, so the untouched logs are on the basement server. If Marcus reaches the board first, he frames me as reckless before I can prove the report is fake. That gave the crisis its shape. Claire was trapped here because the storm had cut off the resort, and the only clean proof was inside the local system. Marcus had leverage because he controlled the board narrative from Chicago and planned to use the storm as cover for a sabotage report. I was involved because the building, the server access, the power, the emergency hardware, and the evidence chain all fell under operations. This was not a rumor to soothe. It was a system to stabilize. Lightning cracked over the water, the lobby flashed white, then fell into amber emergency light as the main power failed and the generator took over. My radio came alive. "Ethan," Sarah said, her voice tight but functional. "Water is under the north storm doors. Guests are moving upstairs. Elevators locked down after the grid switch." "Good call. Use the east stairwell. Keep everyone away from the windows. Open emergency storage 2B and distribute kits. I want your first head count in 10. "Understood." I looked at Claire's laptop again. The basement server room may flood if the sump pumps fail. She went still. "That server has the only untouched logs. Then we pull them now." Part 2. I led Claire away from the lobby and into the executive operations suite behind the reception offices. It was not a guest room. A long table filled the room. A wall-mounted terminal glowed beside a locked cabinet of radio chargers, emergency binders, first aid kits, printed schematics, sealed thermal blankets, and an orange satellite phone case that could not transmit from inside the building but could be carried to the front portico when the wind dropped. The storm battered the windows in the corridor hard enough to tremble through the walls. I tapped my master keycard against the terminal and opened the power grid. "The public Wi-Fi is unstable," I said, "but this room has a hard line to the internal switchboard. If the server rack is still above water, we can pull the logs directly." Claire set her laptop on the table and pushed damp hair back from her face. Her blazer was neat, her posture controlled, but her hands moved too quickly when she opened the system panel. I opened the lower wall panel, pulled out a blue Ethernet cable, and plugged it into her machine. Then I entered the admin override code from the property audit. The laptop screen flickered. A directory opened. Claire's shoulders dropped by half an inch. "I see the files," she said. "Vendor logs, foundation report versions, user access history. Download everything. Do not refresh. Do not rename. Preserve original file structure." She nodded and began working. I opened the cabinet and took out the emergency binder, a leather-bound incident notebook, and an archival pen. Digital files could be attacked. A physical chain of custody, properly logged and witnessed, was harder to erase. Claire glanced at the notebook. "You're documenting manually?" "Yes. Time, access point, file name, creation date, modification history, user ID, download time. If Marcus claims tampering, we show exactly how the evidence was retrieved." Her fingers paused above the keyboard. She looked from the notebook to my face, and the tightness around her mouth eased for one breath. "Read the first file name," I said. She did. I wrote it down. For the next hour, the storm hammered the resort while we built a record Marcus could not delete. Claire called out file names, timestamps, altered inspection dates, and the internal user ID tied to Marcus's corporate terminal. Her voice steadied with each line. Mine stayed low and exact. Outside the conference room, staff moved through the corridor with blankets and bottled water. Sarah's voice came over the radio every 10 minutes. 22 guests. 22 safe. No injuries. Water contained near the north entrance. Generator stable. The words were not dramatic, but they held the building together. Then Claire's phone buzzed. She looked down. The color drained from her face. "What?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. Marcus had posted in the executive team chat. "Given the severe weather event currently battering the Sterling property, I am gravely concerned about the liability Claire Bennett has exposed this company to. I will submit my formal recommendation for disciplinary review at 9 a.m. Claire set the phone on the table as carefully as if it were made of glass. "He's not only targeting me," she said. "He wants my department frozen. My team will lose every acquisition they've built because he wants my chair." The emergency lights hummed above us. Her hands were flat on the table now, but her fingertips pressed hard into the wood. "You have the evidence," I said. "I can't transmit it. The external line is dead." "Then we make the evidence portable. We create a paper trail now, retrieve emergency communications when the wind drops, and bypass Marcus before his report lands." Her eyes lifted. "The satellite phone works?" "Not inside these walls, but the red lockbox unit can connect from the front portico once the gusts fall below safety limits. It was charged and registered during my audit last week." A short breath escaped her. "Not relief exactly. A gap opening in a wall? You planned for that?" "I planned for failure points so other people don't have to." For a few seconds, she looked at me as if I had said something much larger than an operations note. Then she pulled the laptop closer. "Next file," she said. We kept going. The connection slowed, then stabilized, then slowed again. Each time the screen froze, Claire stopped moving until the directory returned. I did not tell her to calm down, so I gave her tasks. File name. Timestamp. User ID. Checksum. Download time. She matched me line for line. At 1:15 in the morning, the coffee in the emergency dispenser had gone bitter. Sarah knocked once and came in with 3 paper cups balanced in a cardboard tray. "Emergency-grade coffee," she said. It may violate our luxury promise. I took one. We will hide it from brand compliance. Claire accepted a cup with both hands. Emergency coffee is perfect. Sarah noticed the notebook, the laptop, the printed storm report, and the thermal blanket still sealed on the table. Her expression tightened with understanding. Is Mr. Vance really trying to blame Miss Bennett for the acquisition? Claire answered before I could. Yes, she said, and in the morning, we prove he fabricated it. Sarah straightened. Then tell me what you need. Claire looked at her, and something quiet passed between them. It was not a speech. It was the moment a leader realizes a junior manager is no longer waiting to be told she matters. Guest movement logs, Claire said. Power switch time, basement water sensor alerts, confirmation that no staff could safely access the server room after flooding began. Sarah nodded. I'll get everything. When she left, Claire watched the door close. She's good, Claire said. She held the lobby together. She should be promoted. I wrote a note in the incident log margin. Claire noticed immediately. What did you write? Sarah Patel, promotion review, storm performance. Claire looked at me for a long second, then shook her head once. You really do protect the house. I closed the notebook for a moment, only because people like her keep it standing. Part 3. At 2:40, the temperature dropped. The HVAC had shut down to preserve generator fuel, and the concrete walls were losing heat faster than expected. Claire rubbed her hands together once, then returned to the keyboard without complaint. I opened the emergency cabinet and set 2 sealed thermal blankets on the table. Use one, I said. No heroics. Cold hands make mistakes. She looked at the blanket, then at me. You always make practical care sound like policy. It is policy. The smallest smile touched her face. She took the blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. I opened the second one, sat at the far end of the conference table, and returned to the notebook. No couch. No bed. No blurred boundary. Just a lockdown operations suite, a storm, a stack of evidence, and 2 people choosing discipline over panic. At 3:15, the internal server connection failed. Claire's laptop froze on the final directory. She did not speak. The lights flickered again. My radio cracked. Ethan, Sarah said, basement sensors show water near the server room door. Engineering says they can't access it until the pump cycle stabilizes. Understood. Keep staff out of the basement. No one risks injury for equipment. I looked at Claire's screen. The last file had downloaded 90 seconds before the connection died. We got it, I said. She stared at the progress log. All of it? All of it. Her hand went to the edge of the table. For a moment, she bowed her head, and the thermal blanket slipped from one shoulder. I did not step toward her. I slid the notebook across the table instead. Sign the chain of custody, I said. Then we plan the morning call. She lifted her head. Her eyes were bright, but her hand was steady when she took the pen. That was the first moment I saw the armor come back, not as a wall, but as a tool. She signed beneath my name. Claire Bennett. The pen clicked shut. What happens at dawn? She asked. We retrieve the satellite phone. You call the CEO directly. I verify the operational chain of custody. Sarah confirms the storm timeline and server failure. David, the regional manager, initiates Protocol 7 as an independent operations breach. Not an HR complaint, she said. No, a verified security incident. Claire leaned back slowly. Rain streaked the dark window beyond the corridor, and the amber emergency light warmed the side of her face. If we file it that way, she said, Marcus's report looks like a cover-up. Because it is. For the first time all night, she smiled without effort. Then let's make it official. Claire and I built the morning packet. At 4:30. Claire stood and paced once around the table, not frantic this time, thinking. He chose 9 because he thought the board would see his report before I could respond, she said. Yes. He also assumed I would argue like a defendant. Yes. She stopped at the far side of the table. So I shouldn't defend first. No. I should report the breach first? I nodded. She picked up the marker and wrote 3 words on the whiteboard. Control the frame. Then she added 3 more. Facts, process, witnesses. The handwriting was sharp, bold, and steady. Watching her work changed something in the room. Until then, I had seen her as the executive under attack. Now I saw the strategist underneath the exhaustion. Marcus had mistaken fatigue for weakness. That mistake would cost him. At 5:10, Sarah entered again, this time with the storm logs and a tired smile. Guest count still complete. She said, no injuries. One complaint about pillow quality, which I am choosing to interpret as a sign civilization survives. Claire laughed softly. I took the logs from Sarah and checked the times. This is excellent. Sarah pointed to the 3rd page. That one shows the basement access restriction. Engineering signed it. Claire stepped toward her. You did exactly what we needed. Sarah's face changed under the praise. Not pride alone, relief. I just didn't want him to get away with blaming you, she said. Claire folded the storm logs into the packet. He won't. The wind outside began to lower before sunrise. It did not stop. It simply lost its rage, breaking down into heavy rain and hard gusts against the building. At 5:45, the main grid returned. The overhead lights flashed bright, almost painful after hours of amber gloom. The HVAC system groaned back to life, pushing warm air through the vents. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second when the heat reached us. Then she opened them and picked up the evidence packet. We move, she asked. We move. Part 4. The resort looked bruised but standing. Wet carpets near the north entrance, industrial fans roaring, staff carrying towels, guests wrapped in blankets, eating breakfast from paper plates in the executive lounge. Rain still streaked the lobby glass, but the ocean had retreated from black violence to gray warning. Sarah stood behind the front desk with a clipboard and a fresh radio battery. Head count complete, she said as we approached. No injuries. Basement server room took water, but engineering shut the rack down before sparks or smoke. The breakfast station is open. Guests are calmer now that coffee exists. Coffee has saved more hotels than architecture, I said. Sarah grinned despite the exhaustion. I retrieved the orange satellite phone from the red lockbox behind the concierge desk. The portico doors shook under the remaining gusts, but the wind meter had dropped below the threshold. I stepped outside with Claire under the covered entry. Rain blew in cold mist across the stone, and the sky beyond the driveway was a pale, battered gray. The satellite phone searched. 1 blink. 2, then solid green. I handed it to Claire. You make the call. I said, your evidence, your department, your voice. She looked at the phone, then at me. You'll verify the operational chain? I'll stand beside you and verify every line. She dialed. I opened the notebook. The CEO answered on the 3rd ring. Richard, Claire said, her voice clear enough to cut through the rain. It's Claire Bennett. The resort is stable. Guests are safe. I'm calling to initiate a Protocol 7 security breach regarding the Sterling acquisition. She listened. No, she continued. Not physical, digital. Marcus Vance altered local foundation inspection metadata to manufacture a liability claim. I have Director of Operations Ethan Morgan with me. He documented the evidence through a physical chain of custody before the basement server room flooded. Rain snapped against the stone beside us. Claire did not flinch. Yes, she said. Send legal to his terminal before his 9 a.m. report circulates. Freeze his access. Preserve his outgoing messages. We have timestamps, user IDs, file history, witness logs, and an independent storm timeline. Another pause. Her grip tightened once on the phone, then relaxed. Thank you, she said. We will return to Chicago when the road opens. She ended the call. For one breath, only Rain spoke. Then she lowered the phone and turned to me. Legal is freezing Marcus's access now. Richard is intercepting the report. Then he loses the first move. No, Claire said, voice softer. He loses the lie. Sarah opened the lobby door and waved the printed packet in the air. Storm logs, final copy. Also, breakfast is now being described by a guest as surprisingly decent. I'm taking that as victory. It is, I said. Claire took the packet from her. You just saved us an hour. Sarah looked from Claire to me. Do we have him? Claire held up the evidence folder. We have the truth, she said. Sarah's tired face brightened. The county opened one lane of the access road for essential travel just after noon. David arrived first, soaked from the walk across the parking lot, carrying an independent incident report and wearing the expression of a man who had driven through half a disaster to find a second disaster waiting inside. I leave you two alone with one resort, he said, and you trigger a corporate security investigation before breakfast. I handed him the notebook. You're welcome. He opened it, read the first page, then the second. His expression changed. This is clean, he said. Clean enough? Claire asked. David looked at her. Clean enough that Marcus is already suspended pending investigation. Legal found the outgoing draft in his queue. Claire went still. He never sent it? Not to the board, David said. Richard intercepted it. Legal preserved the file. Claire's eyes closed for 1 second. When they opened, she was steady again. In my department? Not frozen, David said. Your team remains active. Richard wants your full presentation in Chicago tomorrow. Claire looked down at the storm logs, then across the lobby at Sarah, then at the staff moving blankets and coffee urns like they had not been awake all night. She should be included in the operational commendation, Claire said. David followed her gaze. Sarah? She ran guest safety during a system failure and documented half the evidence chain. David nodded. Done. I said nothing. Claire noticed anyway. You already wrote it down, didn't you? She asked. In the incident recommendations. David looked between us. Of course he did. By late afternoon, the resort had found its rhythm again. Claire stood near the front windows, watching the last strips of rain move over the ocean. I stopped a few feet beside her. The car leaves at 6 tomorrow, I said. David will drive the evidence packet. You should sleep before the board presentation. So should you. I will. She looked at me. No, you won't. A corner of my mouth moved despite the exhaustion. Probably not. She held out a folded emergency blanket. For the operations director who tells everyone else not to be heroic. I took it. The crinkle of the foil blanket was loud between us. Thank you, I said. Her hand brushed mine for half a second. She did not pretend it was an accident and did not turn it into more than it was. That restraint changed the air more than touch would have. Ethan, she said. I looked at her. When this is over, I would like to have dinner with you. The words were quiet, direct, unattached to promotions, job titles, or gratitude. I waited. Claire understood why. Not as your VP, she said. Not as the person whose crisis you helped contain. As Claire. Asking Ethan. After legal closes the Marcus investigation. After David submits all operational recommendations independently. After there is no professional decision between us that could make this feel like a transaction. The rain tapped softly against the glass. There was no pressure in her voice. No reward. No debt. Only a choice made in daylight after the emergency had passed. I would like that, I said. Her smile came slowly, like warmth returning through a vent after a long outage. Good, she said, somewhere with no storm windows. And reliable power. And decent coffee. That may be harder than the board presentation. She laughed, and this time it stayed. Part 5. The next morning, we returned to Chicago with the notebook, the downloaded logs, Sarah's storm reports, David's independent operational review, and the kind of tired silence that follows a storm when people are still hearing wind in their heads. The board meeting lasted 43 minutes. Marcus did not attend. Legal presented the forensic match between his terminal and the altered foundation metadata. Claire presented the acquisition file without apology. David confirmed the resort's emergency response and explained how the local infrastructure failure had exposed the sabotage rather than caused it. I spoke only when asked. Time of access, method of retrieval, server condition, chain of custody, who witnessed the download, when the external line failed, why the satellite phone was necessary. When the CEO closed the folder, he looked at Claire. Your department remains under your leadership, he said. The Sterling acquisition stands, Marcus Vance is terminated pending legal action. Claire did not smile immediately. She placed both hands on the table, breathed once, and nodded. "Thank you," she said. "I also recommend formal recognition for Sarah Patel at the Sterling property. Her actions protected guests and preserved evidence during the crisis." The CEO looked to David. David slid a packet forward, already filed. Claire turned her head slightly toward me. I kept my face neutral. Her eyes warmed anyway. "You did not take the spotlight," she said. "It was not mine. You know that makes you irritatingly difficult to thank." "I'll survive." The elevator doors opened. Before we stepped in, David called my name. I turned. He held up a sealed envelope. Independent operational recommendation, submitted before the board meeting. Corporate wants to discuss expanding your authority over coastal emergency systems. Claire took one step back, making the distance visible to anyone watching. She did not touch the envelope. She did not speak for me. David handed it to me directly. "That's your work," he said, "not politics." I accepted the envelope. Only after David left did Claire look at me. "Still dinner?" she asked. "Still dinner." Her shoulders eased. That evening, we met at a small restaurant 3 blocks from the hotel group's Chicago office. No storm, no emergency lights, no radios, no board members, no one needing rescue. Claire arrived in a simple dark blazer, her hair pinned loosely at the back of her neck. She looked tired, human, and more at peace than I had seen her in months. I stood when she reached the table. She looked at the chair, then at me. "I can sit down without a crisis plan," she said. "Are you sure?" "Almost." I pulled the chair out. She laughed softly and sat. Then the conversation quieted. Claire traced one finger along the edge of her water glass. "I keep thinking about that conference room," she said. "Not because of the storm. Because every time I expected you to step closer, you gave me space. Every time I expected a speech, you gave me a plan. Every time I expected pity, you handed me a tool." The restaurant lights reflected softly in the glass between us. I folded my napkin once, then set it down. "You never needed pity." "No," she said, "but I needed help. I'm learning the difference." The waiter passed our table with a tray of coffee cups. For a second, the warm smell of roasted beans replaced the memory of emergency coffee and wet carpets. Claire smiled at the same time I did. "Better than Sarah's storm coffee?" I asked. "Barely." That was how it began. Not with a locked room. Not with a bed. Not with a favor that had to be repaid. It began with proof, boundaries, a storm survived cleanly, and 2 people choosing to meet again when neither of them was trapped. Inside, Claire reached across the table and placed her hand palm up near mine. I looked at her first. She nodded. Only then did I take it. Her fingers closed around mine, steady and warm. Part 6. 2 weeks later, I returned to the Sterling Coastal Resort under a blue sky so bright the storm felt almost impossible. Almost? The north entrance smelled faintly of new sealant. The ruined carpet had been replaced with stone tile. The server room had been moved to a higher level, and the red emergency lockbox now held 2 satellite phones instead of 1. The building had learned from the night it nearly broke. So had we. Sarah met me in the lobby with a clipboard tucked under her arm. "Guest count is normal," she said. "Weather's boring. Breakfast is decent on purpose this time." "That sounds dangerous. Success might become habit." She grinned. "I also received the commendation letter." "Good. And the promotion review?" "Better." Her expression softened. "Ms. Bennett called me herself. She said my documentation helped protect the whole acquisition." It did. Near the executive lounge, guests laughed over coffee. No amber emergency lights, no wind pressing against the glass, no false accusation waiting in a board inbox, just a hotel doing what it was built to do. Shelter people. Claire arrived just after noon with David beside her, both carrying folders. She wore a professional cream blazer and walked with the calm of someone who had been tested in public and remained standing. When she saw Sarah at the desk, she stopped there first. Not for show. She shook Sarah's hand and said something I could not hear. Sarah's face lit with a kind of stunned pride no corporate memo could manufacture. David came to stand beside me. Corporate approved the coastal emergency expansion. I saw your new title becomes official Monday. The recommendation stayed independent? David gave me a dry look. I filed it before Claire asked you to dinner. I also put that sentence in writing because I know how your brain works. Good. You know, most people enjoy promotions. I enjoy clean governance. That may be the saddest sentence ever spoken in hospitality. Claire approached before I could answer. What did he say? She asked. That I enjoy clean governance. She looked at David. That sounds like him. David lifted both hands. I'll leave you two with the inspection before I become part of a compliance seminar. When he walked away, Claire handed me a small paper cup. Coffee? I asked. Sarah made it. That sounds risky. She said it's no longer emergency grade. I took a sip. It was good. Claire watched my face closely. Well, civilization continues. She laughed, and the sound folded into the open lobby like it belonged there. We walked to the executive operations suite after the inspection. The long table had been cleared. Fresh notepads sat in a clean stack. The emergency cabinet was restocked. On the whiteboard, someone had written 3 words in neat block letters. Facts, process, witnesses. Claire stared at it. Sarah? Sarah, I said. Sunlight crossed the table in a clean, bright stripe. The last time Claire had stood here, rain had been hammering the building. Marcus's lie had been racing toward the board, and the only thing between her and professional ruin had been a dying server and a notebook. Now the room was quiet. I used to think being strong meant never needing the room to hold me, she said. I waited. She looked at the cabinet, the whiteboard, and the place where we had built the chain of custody line by line. But rooms are built to hold people, she said. So are good systems. So are good teams. Then she looked at me. So are good men. The words stood on their own. She did not dress them up. She did not turn them into debt. I set the maintenance packet on the table. Claire. Yes? I'm still learning how to be chosen without treating it like a responsibility to manage. Her face softened, but she did not move closer too quickly. Then we learned slowly, she said. Outside the room, Sarah's voice carried from the lobby, bright and confident as she directed a delivery crew. Somewhere down the hall, a vacuum hummed. The ocean threw clean light through the windows. Claire held out her hand. Not dramatically, not secretly, not because fear or weather or career danger had trapped us together. Because we were both free to leave, and neither of us did. I took her hand. For once, there was no storm to manage, no false report to stop, no emergency door to check. Only the quiet work of beginning. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real trust is built through respect, clear boundaries, and showing up when the pressure is real. Green flag. The right person does not turn your crisis into control. They help you stand stronger in your own life. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this. The end.